I would now like to introduce past District Governor Jim Hunt. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Eloisa. When Eloisa asked, these three old guys, pathway members that have been district governors, to talk about how they became district governors and their pathway to that, I thought immediately of something I used to tell every incoming club president. There's two rules you should never break if you want your meeting to end on time. Rule number one, never ask a retired Baptist minister to give the invocation. And two, never voluntarily hand a microphone to a past district governor. Fortunately, Pathways doesn't have the first problem. Unfortunately, I forgot to tell Eloisa about the second one. So if this runs a little long, that's on her. Before I go any further, I need to mention someone who has been part of every step of this journey, and that's Sue. Everything I'll talk about, every meeting, every trip, every Rotary opportunity happened because Sue was there beside me. Without her support, none of this would have happened. In 1979, I joined Rotary. My sponsor was my father-in-law, John Murbaugh. Back then, Rotary was a different organization. Classifications were really a big deal. When Rotary was founded, you only had one person from a particular profession that could belong to a club. By the time I joined, they had become a little more flexible and allowed two people of the same classification. My father-in-law and I were in a family business, and he wanted to make sure our classification stayed in a family. So at a relatively young age, I found myself becoming a Rotarian. And thankfully, Rotary has evolved tremendously since then. We still have classification, but they are no longer barriers to membership. Rotary became stronger by becoming more inclusive. At my new member orientation, the longtime secretary of the Elyria Rotary Club, Bob Perry, gave me advice that has guided me for the past 47 years. Bob became my mentor, my cheerleader, and one of the most important people in my Rotary life. He said, "Jim, there's only two things you need to remember to be a successful Rotarian. First, sit at a different table every week. Get to know everyone." At that time, the Elyria Rotary Club had 188 members and averaged 140 at lunch every Tuesday. Bob understood that Rotary is about relationships. Then he gave me the second piece of advice. There is no such thing as no in Rotary. If someone asks you to help, your first response should be yes. Sure, sometimes circumstances make that impossible, but Rotary works best when we approach opportunities by asking, "How can I help?" Those two lessons have guided me throughout my entire Rotary career. A few years later, I was elected to the Elyria Rotary Board. I was the youngest board member by about 20 years. One day we received a letter from Rotary International. For the first time in Rotary history, every Rotary club in the world was being asked to participate in one common project: eradicate polio. Rotary International informed us that based on the size of our club, we were expected to raise $8,000. Now remember, this was before email. We actually got letters in the mail. I sat there listening to what I call Rotarian hand-wringing. You know the conversation. We've never done anything like this before. We've never raised that much money. You know, isn't that a little bit ambitious? Then one board member, Lee Bays, finally spoke up. He said, I'll chair the committee and we'll raise the money. That was it. No excuses, no debates, no hand wringing, just action. And Lee didn't raise the $8,000. He raised $54,000. That moment taught me something I'll never forget. Ordinary people working together with the right attitude can accomplish extraordinary things. That lesson would come back many times during my Rotary journey. In 1987, Rotary welcomed women into membership following a U.S. Supreme Court ruling. The Elyria Rotary Club admitted its first women members on November 10th, 1987. I remember that day well because it was my 40th birthday. Sue wanted to surprise me. She arranged for black balloons to be delivered to the meeting. Unfortunately, she had no idea that we were inducting the first women members in Rotary history that same day. So imagine the scene. 5 women are being welcomed into Rotary for the first time, and suddenly black balloons arrive. People started wondering if someone was protesting. Thankfully, it was eventually explained that the balloons were not about the women. They were simply recognizing the fact that I had turned 40. A few years later, Sue became a charter member of the Elyria Sunrise Rotary Club. And just for the record, I did not send black balloons. One of the greatest privileges of my Rotary life came in 1991 when I led a group study exchange team to the Philippines. When I stepped off the plane after a very long flight, the first person to greet me introduced himself simply as Benny. What I didn't fully appreciate at the moment was that Benny was Dr. Sabino Benny Santos, a Rotary International Director. Everyone who met Benny remembered 2 things, his smile and his optimism. Benny told me a story that changed the way I view leadership. When Benny went for his training, and he went to the Rotary International Assembly that Bart talked about, where we all come, all 530 plus of us. It's the last big training that we have. And at a cocktail party, social hour before everything started, he met one of his classmates from Canada. And you remember I told you classification was a big deal? Well, we always had it on our name tags. And so this gentleman's classification said vaccine manufacturer. And Benny asked him, he says, well, what kind of vaccine do you manufacture? He says, well, we manufacture the wild polio virus vaccine. And Benny looked at him and says, oh my goodness. He says, you know, the Philippines has the highest per capita of polio in the world. And I'm gonna somehow figure out how we can take that on. But the problem is that the Philippines is so poor, we can't afford that vaccine. And it seems terrible that we could prevent that disease, that the vaccine is available. And his new Canadian classmate looked at him and he says, you know what? Maybe I can help you. Our biggest customer is the United States. We have to label all those vaccines with an expiration date. And the United States will not let us send it there if it's within 6 months of that expiration date. So we throw away perfectly good vaccine. If you have a way of paying for the freight, I can ship you all the vaccine you want. Well, now most people would have seen this as an obstacle, how to come up with that money for that shipment. Benny saw it as an opportunity. He went home and he found a way, and that effort helped eliminate polio from the Philippines. Fast forward 6 years, and Benny's on the board of directors for Rotary International, and they have a big discussion about taking on the project of polio. They felt it was almost impossible. Benny became one of the strongest advocates. Benny taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Attitude is everything. When people believe something can be done, amazing things become possible. I eventually served as district governor in 2001, 2002, and people often ask me what it was like. And my answer is simple. I gave it everything I had. I met incredible Rotarians. I saw remarkable service projects. I worked with amazing club presidents throughout District 6600, including Jerry Scully was my president of Elyria, and David Dockerman was the president of the Mansfield Club when I was governor. After my year, which I'll get to, but I can tell you that I learned that Rotary's greatest strength has never been its structure. Its greatest strength has always been its people. The final person I want to mention is past Rotary International Director, Vice President Lou Piccone. After my year as governor, I received several international assignments at the zone level, and eventually I served as the Permanent Fund National Advisor for the United States and Canada. And the committee was chaired by Lou. Also serving with me on that committee were two people who would later become major Rotary leaders, Mary Beth Groni-Saleni and Stephanie Yershik. Lou was a tireless worker. He had a way of inspiring people to accomplish more than they thought possible. Unfortunately, Lou developed cancer. The day before he passed away, he called me from his hospital bed, not to talk about himself, not to complain, not to say goodbye. He called me to discuss Rotary work that still needed to be done. That was Lou. Service until the very end. His example had a profound impact on Sue and me. It helped inspire our decision to become members of the Arch Clump Society. We wanted to honor the people who had influenced our lives through Rotary, but we also wanted to pay it forward because Rotary changed our lives. And we hope our support helps Rotary continue changing lives long after we're gone. When I look back on nearly 5 decades of Rotary, I don't primarily remember the titles. I don't remember the meetings. I don't remember the committees. I remember the people. Bob Perry taught me relationships matter. Lee Bays taught me to think bigger. Benny Santos taught me that attitude changed the world. Lou Piccone taught me that service never ends. And Sue taught me that none of this is possible alone. If there's one lesson from my Rotary journey is this: Rotary is not about one person can accomplish. Rotary is about what ordinary people can accomplish together when they decide to say yes and put service above self. Thank you.